guys, so if you don't know me, my name is Jen. This is my first YouTube video. I have kind of like a blog, if you will, called Bless This Mess. I'll link it below, and I talk a lot about body positivity, fitness, food, all different kinds of things. And I asked you guys if you would want to see a video on my college experience. I am in college. I'm going to my sophomore year, and I definitely didn't have the stereotypical first year college experience in a sense, and I just kind of wanted to talk about that because I know that there's a lot of people who follow me that are going into college their first year, or they're going to be seniors and they're starting to get stressed about college, or they're far down the line, nowhere near college, but I feel like some of these things are still applicable to everyday life, no matter where you are. And so I kind of wanted to talk about that. It might be a long story, but just to preface it is that just because this is my story and I'm sharing it with you guys, it's because I want to share that it isn't always, I guess, what you think it's going to be, but it doesn't mean that my story is going to be your story or that every single person goes through the same thing, because that's not true at all. But I guess it might seem like everything's good, but behind the scenes there's so much more to it, but it doesn't define who you are. It doesn't have to be your full story. And so I just guess I wanted to share that with y'all. So I feel like, just to preface, when I was young, I feel like I kind of had a predisposition to an eating disorder. And I remember being, and I know this probably sounds super crazy to a lot of you guys, but I remember being really, really young and thinking, why does my stomach look like that? Or why don't my thighs have a gap in between them? Or, why am I look like this? And, my friend doesn't look like that. And I really thought that I was like fat as a little kid, even though looking back on it now, I never was. I was completely healthy. I was fine. And even if I was, that would be fine too, because I was just a little kid. I was being me. But I remember from such a young age that I had that predisposition in me. And I kind of struggled with that my whole life, and feeling insecure and, struggling with food insecurities and things like that. But I never really tackled it and did anything about it. I kind of just worked through it and suppressed it. And then I think that the stress and the change of college really just hit me like a ton of bricks, if you will. And I remember going into recruitment for Greek life, and I remember looking around, and I'd never really experienced that kind of lifestyle. And so I was looking around at all these girls who were absolutely stunning, and their beauty didn't undermine mine. Like, just because they're beautiful doesn't mean I'm not, or make me less beautiful in my own way. But I definitely looked at them and thought, oh my gosh, like, their nails are perfect, always done. They have this perfect spray tan. They look amazing. They have legs for days. Like, my hair doesn't look like that in the humidity. Like, my makeup is literally melting off of my face, and you look perfect. And so I felt like I was just comparing myself to so many people, and that definitely took a beating for my self-esteem. And I think I let that just control me completely. And I think going into college, I wasn't really happy with my body, and I feel like I never really was, but that was like kind of the heaviest that I had been. And there's nothing wrong with me. I was completely healthy, but I wasn't satisfied within myself. And so I really struggled with that. And then, fast forward a little bit, I feel like I started really putting pressure on myself to look a certain way and fit a certain mold. And so I started restricting food intake. I started working out every single day, and I worked out probably 4 to 5 times a week before that, but I would run like 6 miles a day at the most. Usually it was anywhere from like 4 to 6. And I'd be at the gym for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I do love working out. I love that. But it was too much, and I was definitely pushing my body to a limit that it wasn't really supposed to be at. And I wasn't eating enough for how much I was working out. And I was just really struggling. And my mental health was like just nosediving. And I was so insecure, and I struggled, and I felt unhappy, and I didn't really know why, and I was so stressed, and I felt like I had shut myself out from so many different people because I felt like I had lost who I was, and I was so engulfed in this food aspect of my life because I felt like it was the only thing in my life that I could control at the time. It was the only thing that I could have even an ounce of grip on, while the rest of my life was just kind of turning in front of me. And so I tried to control that so much. It was so detrimental to me because it was all I could think about, and I would obsess, and then in the long run I was just always hungry because I was restricting so much. So it was always on my mind and I couldn't get away from it, and that had become my life. Between when I came back for Christmas and when I came back for summer, I lost 13 pounds. And I don't even think I realized it in the time, but I didn't really have 13 pounds to lose. And I wasn't necessarily trying to lose weight, but I was just trying to find this thing within me to make me happier, when I didn't realize that it wasn't going to come from looking a certain way. It was going to come from like accepting and loving myself. And I know that now, but it's still hard. It's still something I work at every single day. And I know that I'm not the only one who struggles with this, and I know that there are so many other girls out there who deal with the exact same thing. I know that, you know, my story can hopefully help other people as well. And I kind of told my mom when I came back from school, I was like, I really think that I need to see someone. And I also think that I was completely in denial that I had an eating disorder, because I think a big problem with kind of our world today is that people think that an eating disorder looks a certain way. So, you know, we think, oh, well, you know, you're only anorexic if you look completely emaciated, or you look like you need to eat, or you look unhealthy, which that's not the case, because eating disorders don't discriminate, and that you can't tell just by looking at someone if they have an eating disorder. And I felt like, oh, well, you know, I'm fine because I look fine, I look normal, and I wasn't fine at all. Going to therapy and a nutritionist and having someone tell me like, you fit all the criteria and you're like, you have an eating disorder, it was hard for me to hear, because I was like, no, like I'm just, you know, I just, you know, have some food insecurities. But in reality, distorted eating is not supposed to be healthy. And I think that in our world today, we disguise all these, you know, eating criteria and distorted eating as healthy and being health conscious, when it's really not like that. And you're not supposed to have, food is not supposed to have that grip on you emotionally and physically like it did for me and like it does for so many other people. I definitely realized that it was not normal, and I was ashamed of it at first. I thought, oh my gosh, like I never thought that I would be a person who has an eating disorder. But as I've gone through therapy and just kind of working at it so much this summer, I've realized that it's not something to be ashamed of, but it's also a part of me, yet it's not who I am. So just because you may have anxiety, just because you may have depression, just because you may have an eating disorder, does not mean that you are anxiety, that you are depression, that you are an eating disorder. Because you may have those things, but it doesn't define who you are. And I realized that I have this thing about me, but it doesn't mean that that's the only thing that I am. It was definitely freeing to notice that. And the hard thing about eating disorders is that they don't go away in a day. That you're taught by, it doesn't, not necessarily by anyone, but maybe yourself, that you're supposed to hate your body, or that you aren't good enough. And so you have to unteach yourself that. And sometimes it may never fully go away, but you learn how to handle it and you learn how to cope. And that's what I'm working on right now. And it's really hard. It's, you know, I don't want to go into details about, you know, my tendencies or things that I would do, because that's kind of irrelevant. And I thought that everyone else around me was doing just fine. That kind of made me take myself out of social settings and things like that, because I just felt so alone, because I felt like the only one who was struggling. And I felt like the only one who was struggling to find a solid friend group. Anyone who said, oh, like, I don't cry, or like, I'm not drowning in schoolwork, or like, I don't miss my family, or I'm totally fine. That's a lie. Like, no one's completely fine. but that's also okay. I think that I made the mistake of thinking that everyone else was doing just fine and I was the only one that was struggling, because there are so many people that are struggling who are hiding it just like me. I guess I let the idea that college is supposed to be the best thing ever and that everything's fine and everything's unicorns and rainbows all the time and it's so fun, you won't want to go home and all this different stuff, which is true in a sense, but it's also not. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that there are so many people out there who are struggling, and if you are going through things that you think that no one else will understand, that no one else is going through, I can assure you that there are people, and there are people that support you and love you. And if you feel like you don't have anyone to talk to, I'm your gal. Message me on Instagram if you have my phone number. You can text me too. There's no judgment. I am 100% here for you. If you ever need anything, like, trust me, what you may think is crazy and makes no sense, I guarantee you it does to so many people. And so, yeah, I just wanted to share my story with you guys in hopes that it'll help some of you realize that you're not alone and that there's so many people going through the same things. And so if you ever need anything, I'm your gal. But yeah, I hope this was helpful for you guys. It's obviously hard for me to talk about and hard to be vulnerable, but I know that if I can even help one person, it's a success. So thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.